Hi everyone. You may or may not have noticed that every now and then Lensbaby has put together some of their equipment into a kit. And they just announced a new kit, the Soft Focus Macro Kit, and it is one that I had suggested to them. So I'm really excited about this kit, and I want to show you what is in it and talk a little bit about how I use the components in this kit. So the kit comes with a nice solid zippered case to keep everything in, and I love this because I can just grab that kit and head out the door and I know that I have everything in there that I'm going to need to shoot my Lensbaby macros. So there will be a Composer Pro with a Sweet 50 optic in the kit. There's also a Soft Focus 2 optic, so you can take the Sweet 50 out and pop in the Soft Focus 2 instead. There's a set of 3 macro filters in a nice little pouch. There are the creative aperture discs that you can use with the Soft Focus optic, and there's a nice solid big lens cloth, which I love too. So let's look at the components individually. Okay, the first is the Composer Pro 2 with a Sweet 50 optic. If you're not familiar with this optic, it's probably my very favorite. It's 50 millimeter. The minimum focus distance is 15 inches. It's fully manual and it tilts. The apertures are from f2.5 to f22. You control the apertures right on the optic. It's a fully manual lens. The minimum focus distance of 15 inches is a little far for macro. So if I have this on my camera, most likely I have the +4 macro filter on it. And sometimes I will also add the 2, the 1, or use those separately if I don't need to get quite as close. It tilts because this optic has a sweet spot of focus in the center. And when you tilt that optic, it moves that sweet spot of focus to anywhere you want in the frame, and moving it also causes directionality and distortion in the blur, and it's an absolutely beautiful effect. I love it for flowers. It's part of the optic swap system where you can get different optics with different effects and different focal lengths, so this kit has 2 of them. So let's look more at some of my images with the Sweet 50 optic. Okay, so I'm tilting here, I'm moving that sweet spot of focus onto the petal edges of this blue poppy. That's where I wanted to draw the eye, that's where I want to draw attention. I think this is probably at f5.6 to get enough of those petal edges in focus. There's another shot. This is also at f5.6. This one is f8. I wanted a little bit more detail, and you can see I'm tilting up here to move the area in focus higher in the frame. So another, this is also at f5.6. Here I've tilted to the lower right. This one's f2.8. I wanted more blur, less in focus, just a very small amount of petal texture and that petal edge in focus on this iris. This one I think is at f5.6 as well, and you can really see the directionality in the blur in the bottom half of the frame in this one. I'll just show you a couple of more examples. So you can see sweet spot of focus, everything else is blurred. You can stop down an aperture for a larger sweet spot of focus. The blur here is more on the outer edges. Or you can go softer, go back down to 2.8 or f4. Totally up to you. You can move that sweet spot of focus to highlight exactly what you feel is most important in your composition. Okay. I really like to shoot at f2.8 with the Sweet 50 because I happen to love blur and I love the distortion that it creates, and I think it's a beautiful effect for my flowers. Okay, I want to give you some tips if you have never used a Sweet 50 for getting started with it. So I would recommend that you use f4 or f5.6 only in the beginning. That gives you a decent sized sweet spot of focus, which is going to make it easier to see in the beginning. Keep the lens straight. It's fun to bend, but when you're first learning how to use this lens, you'll get more keepers if you keep the lens straight, because bending does make focus a little tougher. Hold off on adding macro in the beginning. Adding macro reduces depth of field. It's going to make focus a little harder for you. So I'm trying to really start you off just being a little easier, okay? Fill the frame with lots of subject matter. You want to give the Lensbaby lots to distort and blur in your backgrounds. Check your exposure often, because this optic and composer tilts, you could be tilting your lens toward the light source or away from it. So definitely keep an eye on your exposure. All right. So the other optic that's in this kit is the Soft Focus 2 optic, which is Lensbaby's newest optic. It's again 50 millimeter. The minimum focus distance is the same as the Sweet 50 at 15 inches. Again, it's fully manual. You don't need to tilt this one. And it's from f2.5 to f22. It does come with a set of special aperture discs, and they'll allow you to customize that softness and the effect even more, right? Just lots of different options to play with. You don't need to bend this. As I said, the effect will be across the frame. You're not trying to get a sweet spot of focus surrounded by blur like you are with the Sweet 50. An all over gorgeous, soft effect. Okay, here are a couple of examples of the same flower at f2.5 on the left, f4 on the right. You can see that there's a little bit less of that gorgeous glow on the one on the right, but still what I would consider soft. So this optic creates, when you use it at f2.8, f4, which are my favorite two apertures, you're getting soft glow with underlying sharp petal edges. And the more you stop down, there'll be a bit less of that glow. Really strong glow wide open, less as you stop down to smaller apertures. This has the large special aperture disc. You can see it does create a different sort of effect in the background. I think this looks like I shot it in the fog, and I did not. So this is a dahlia at f2.8 and the same flower at f4. All right, so let's go back to the 2.8. You can see that the glow will be a lot stronger, but there is focus. You can see petal edges here, and that glow is reduced at f4. I'm going to show you a few more examples. This is f2.8. This is actually the image that made me fall in love with the Soft Focus 2. I just thought these two looked like they were dancing together, and I thought the glow was absolutely beautiful. Here's one at f2.5, another at f2.5. See that soft glow, but again, there is focus. f2.8 for a little more definition. f2.5, that soft glow. f2.5. This one was at f4. All right, you can see that the aperture that I'm using is controlling how much glow, how much softness. You know, this one not quite so much. Really wanted more detail here. This one I wanted to go soft. I also mentioned that there's a set of 3 macro filters in the kit. You can use them individually or you can combine them. So you're actually going from +1 to +7 with those 3. So let's also talk about what that does when you put that on your, let's look at it on the Sweet 50. So this is what the macro kit can do. The image on the left is the Sweet 50 with no macro added. That's at the minimum focus distance in my garden, as close as I could get to this dahlia. But if you look at the image on the right, you can see that this is the same flower with a +4 macro filter. And you can see why I say that that is usually the one that is on the optic if I have that on my camera. All right, so let's look at a series of photos with the different options in that macro kit. All of the images in this set are at f4. Okay, so this is the Sweet 50, f4, no macro added. Here's with the +1. Okay, already you can see that I got a lot closer, and also I want you to pay attention to the depth of field, because the closer you are to your subject, the more depth of field is reduced. This is +2. All right, I'm combining the +1 and the +2 macro filters for +3, +4, combining 1 and 4 for +5. Now I'm combining 2 and 4 for +6, and all 3 of them together for +7. And look how depth of field is greatly reduced now. So generally I'm stopping down to a smaller aperture to compensate for that, but I really wanted to show you the effect on depth of field when you use the macro kit. Let's look at another set of examples. So this is the Sweet 50 with no macro. All of the images in this series will be at f5.6. This is in my rose guard. This is when I added the +1. I mean, already, let's go back from that to that with just my +1, +2, +3. Can you see that I'm starting to lose a lot of depth of field here? right at +4. Combining the +1 and the +4 for 5, 6, and all 3. Okay, so we went from this to that. And then you can see why I love the macro filters so much. So which optic when, right? Which do I want, the Sweet 50? Which do I want, the soft focus optic? It depends. I mean, what do I see when I'm looking at my flower? You know, what's the story that I want to tell? Will the softness from that soft focus 2 optic add to the image? Or will it lessen a strong focal point if I really want to draw attention to one area? You know, is petal texture a strong element? Then I'm probably going to go with the Sweet 50. Will selective focus tell the story I want to tell? Or would I be better off with a softer all-over look? This is with the Sweet 50. I really wanted to highlight where all those petals were coming together. Will an all-over softness add to the image? Obviously, this is the soft focus 2. I encourage you to try both. You know, if you've got this kit, you have these optics, try the same subject with your Sweet 50 at the same aperture as the soft focus 2. Here's another example. I just shot this 5 minutes ago for you. Here, I really prefer the soft focus. I don't think I needed anything particular in focus in this subject. I think the all-over softness is a really beautiful effect here. I'm going to show you just 2 more. This is a dahlia with the Sweet 50 at f4 and the soft focus optic at f4. So again, try both. You know, have fun. When you look at them together, I'm sure there will be one that tells the story that you want to tell and shows the flower your way. And that's really important. I want you to have fun above all. Thank you.